My dad abandoned us when I was 7, then showed up at my college graduation with his new family like nothing happened. I told the truth to my half-siblings, exposed his lies, and his marriage started falling apart. I am Jake, 22 male, and I need advice about a situation with my dad that has gotten completely out of hand. This involves my older sister Emma, 29 female, my dad Richard, 52 male, and his other kids from his second marriage, my half-sister Sophie, 16 female, and half-brother Dylan, 14 male. Their mom is Carol, 45, who my dad married after leaving us. Let me give you the background first because it is complicated. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. My dad basically just walked out one day and moved across the country to California. He said he needed space to figure things out, but really, he had been having an affair with Carol for over 2 years. We found out later that Carol was pregnant with Sophie when my dad left us. So, he abandoned his first family to start a new one. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat after he left. She cleaned offices at night, worked at a grocery store during the day, and did people's taxes during tax season. Emma basically raised me because mom was always working. Emma was 14 when dad left, and she had to grow up fast. She would make my lunches, help with homework, and put me to bed most nights. Dad would call maybe once a month for the first year after he left. Then it became every few months. Then just holidays. Emma stopped talking to him completely when she turned 16. She said he made his choice and it was not us. I kept talking to him because I was young and still hoped he would come back somehow. The child support payments were a joke. He was supposed to send $800 a month for both of us, but would often send $200 or $300 and make excuses about why he could not send more. Mom never took him to court because she said it would cost more in lawyer fees than we would get. When I turned 18, Dad stopped the child support entirely. He said since I was an adult now, his obligation was over. Never mind that I was starting college and could have used the help. Mom had been saving every penny for years to help pay for my education. I maintained minimal contact with Dad through college. He would text me on my birthday and major holidays. Sometimes he would call and we would have these awkward 10-minute conversations where he would ask about school and I would give short answers. He never visited, not once in 15 years. Emma moved to Portland after college and got a good job at a tech company. She bought a house and has been helping Mom financially ever since. Mom finally quit the night cleaning job 2 years ago because Emma insisted on sending money every month. Emma has never spoken to Dad since she was 16. If his name comes up, she just changes the subject. Last year, I got curious about my half-siblings and found Sophie on Instagram. She had posted a picture from a family vacation and tagged the location. I could see Dad in the background playing with Dylan on the beach. It was weird seeing him look so happy and carefree with them when I barely remembered him smiling when I was little. Sophie and I started messaging back and forth. She seemed nice and was curious about Emma and me. She said Dad had told her we existed, but that we lived far away and were not interested in contact. That was not exactly true, but I did not correct her right away. Dylan was harder to connect with because he is younger and not on social media much. But through Sophie, I learned that Dad coaches his baseball team and goes to all his games. He helps with homework every night, and they take family vacations twice a year. Basically, he is the dad to them that he never was to Emma and me. This made me start thinking about reaching out more. Maybe Dad had changed. Maybe he regretted how things went with us. Sophie kept asking if she could meet Emma and me someday. She seemed genuinely excited about having older siblings. I mentioned this to Emma during one of our weekly phone calls. She got quiet for a long time. Then she said that Dad had made his choice 15 years ago and she was not interested in his Doover family. She said if I wanted to talk to them, that was my business, but not to expect her to join in. Mom was more understanding. She said she did not hate Dad anymore, but that too much time had passed. She said if I wanted a relationship with my half-siblings, that was fine, but to be careful about getting my hopes up with Dad. Things stayed like this for about 6 months. Sophie and I would text every few weeks. She would send pictures from school, events, or family stuff. I would tell her about college and my plans after graduation. It was nice having a sister, even if we had never met in person. Then last month, something changed. Dad started texting me more often. At first, it was just normal stuff like asking about my classes and when graduation was, but then he started bringing up Sophie and Dylan more. He would mention things they were doing and suggest that we should all meet up soon. I was graduating from college in May and had been planning a small celebration with just Mom and Emma. We were going to have dinner at Mom's favorite restaurant and maybe see a movie. Nothing fancy, but I was looking forward to it. Dad asked about graduation plans and I told him about the dinner. He immediately suggested that he and Carol and the kids should come for graduation. He said it would be the perfect opportunity for everyone to finally meet and celebrate together as one big family. I told him that Emma would not be comfortable with that and that it was supposed to be a small thing. He kept pushing and said that Emma needed to let go of old grudges for the sake of family unity. He said Sophie and Dylan were excited to meet their siblings and that it was not fair to keep the family divided. I talked to Emma about it and she said absolutely not. She said Dad had missed every important moment in our lives and did not get to show up to my graduation and pretend to be father of the year. She said if he came, she would not. When I told Dad this, he got upset. He said Emma was being childish and holding on to anger that was hurting everyone. He said he knew he had made mistakes, but that he was trying to make things right now. He asked me to convince Emma to give him a chance. I said I would not pressure Emma and that if he wanted to repair things with her, he needed to do it himself. He said he had tried reaching out to her over the years, but she never responded. I pointed out that a few generic birthday texts over 15 years was not exactly trying very hard. Dad then started calling instead of just texting. He would call every few days with new arguments about why the family should reunite at graduation. He said Carol was excited to meet us, and that Sophie and Dylan talked about us all the time. He said this could be the fresh start we all needed. The conversation started getting longer and more intense. Dad would talk about how much he regretted leaving and how he wanted to be a better father now. He said, seeing Emma and me succeed despite his absence made him proud, but also guilty. He said he lay awake at night thinking about all the moments he had missed. Part of me wanted to believe him, but Emma kept pointing out that he only seemed interested now that we were adults and did not need anything from him. She said it was easy to want a relationship when all the hard work of raising us was over. 2 weeks before graduation, Dad called and said he had already bought plane tickets for his whole family to come. He said they had booked a hotel and made dinner reservations for all of us. He said it was going to happen whether Emma liked it or not because he was not missing another important moment in my life. I told him he needed to cancel because Emma had already said she would not come if he was there. He said Emma would change her mind once she saw how much Sophie and Dylan wanted to meet her. He said sometimes you had to force these situations because people were too stubborn to do the right thing on their own. That night I called Emma and told her what Dad had done. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said she was not surprised because Dad had always been manipulative and controlling. She said this was exactly why she did not want him in her life. Emma said she would still come to graduation, but that she was bringing her boyfriend, Marcus, 31 male, for support. She said if Dad tried to force a big family reunion, she would leave immediately. She said she had waited 15 years for my graduation and was not going to let Dad ruin it. I was stuck in the middle. I wanted both Emma and my half-siblings at graduation, but Dad was making that impossible. Sophie had been texting me excited messages about the trip and meeting Emma. She had bought a new dress and was planning what to say when they met. The whole situation had turned my graduation celebration into a potential disaster. Instead of focusing on finishing my degree, I was spending all my time trying to manage this family drama that I never asked for. Update 1. So, graduation happened and it was even worse than I expected. I thought I should update everyone on how this mess played out. Dad showed up with Carol, 45, Sophie, 16 female, and Dylan, 14 male, even though I had asked him not to come. They arrived 2 days before graduation, and Dad immediately started texting me about getting together. I told him I was busy with final preparations and could not meet up right away. Emma, 29 female, and Marcus, 31 male, flew in the night before graduation. Emma seemed tense, but was trying to keep things normal for my sake. We had dinner at Mom's house and talked about everything except Dad being in town. The graduation ceremony itself was fine. It was in a big auditorium with hundreds of families, so I could not see who was there during the actual ceremony. But afterwards, when I was looking for my family in the crowd, both groups found me at the same time. Emma and Mom approached from one side, just as Dad and his family came from the other direction. Sophie saw Emma first and got excited, saying something about finally meeting her big sister. Emma froze when she saw Dad. Dad stepped forward and tried to hug Emma. She stepped back and said hello in this cold, polite voice you use with strangers. Dad introduced Carol and the kids. Sophie was bouncing with excitement, but Dylan seemed to pick up on the tension and stayed quiet. Carol tried to make conversation by saying she had heard so much about Emma and me over the years. Emma just nodded and did not respond. The whole interaction lasted maybe 2 minutes before Emma said she needed to find the bathroom and walked away with Marcus following. Dad looked embarrassed and tried to laugh it off. He suggested we all go to lunch together to continue celebrating. Mom politely said we already had plans. Sophie looked confused and asked if Emma was okay. I did not know what to say. Here was my 16-year-old half-sister, who had been looking forward to this meeting for weeks, and Emma had basically ignored her. But I also understood why Emma reacted that way. Dad pulled me aside and asked me to convince Emma to join them for lunch. He said they had come all this way, and the kids were disappointed. I said I would ask, but could not promise anything. I found Emma outside the auditorium. She was pacing back and forth, and Marcus was trying to calm her down. When she saw me, she said she could not do it. She said seeing Dad pretending to be this devoted family man made her sick when he had abandoned us without looking back. I asked if she could just try for Sophie and Dylan's sake since they were innocent in all this. Emma said she felt bad for them, but that was not her responsibility. She said Dad should have thought about how his actions would affect everyone before making his choices. Emma said she was going back to the hotel and would see me for our planned dinner that evening. She said if Dad and his family showed up to dinner, she would leave. Then she and Marcus got in their rental car and drove away. I went back to find Dad and his family. Sophie asked where Emma went, and I said she was not feeling well. Dad asked if they could join us for dinner instead. I said it was supposed to be just Mom, Emma, and me, but he kept pushing. Finally, I said they could come, but that Emma might not stay if she was uncomfortable. Dad said that was fine and that maybe seeing the kids again would soften Emma's heart. That evening, we met at the restaurant Mom had picked. It was this small Italian place where we had celebrated my high school graduation too. Dad's family was already there when we arrived. Sophie had saved a seat next to her for Emma and waved us over when she saw us. Emma sat down, but not in the seat Sophie had saved. She sat at the far end of the table next to Mom. Dinner was awkward. Dad kept trying to start conversations about old memories or asking Emma about her job. Emma would give short answers, and then turn to talk to Mom or me. Sophie kept trying to join in, but Emma was not really responding to her either. Dylan mostly ate in silence. He seemed overwhelmed by the whole situation. Carol tried to keep things light by talking about their trip and how nice the city was. About halfway through dinner, Dad started talking about how great it was to have everyone together finally. He said he knew it would take time, but that this was the beginning of rebuilding the family relationships. Emma put down her fork and said she needed to be clear about something. She said she was not interested in rebuilding anything with Dad. She said too much time had passed and too much damage had been done. Dad said that was exactly the kind of thinking that kept families apart. He said everyone makes mistakes, but that holding grudges forever helps no one. He said Sophie and Dylan should not have to pay for his past mistakes. Emma said she was not punishing Sophie and Dylan, but that she also was not going to pretend everything was fine just because Dad wanted a do-over. She said actions have consequences, and that some things cannot be fixed just because you decide you want them fixed. Sophie started crying. She said she had been so excited to meet Emma and that she thought having older siblings would be fun. She said she did not understand why everyone was so angry about things that happened before she was even born. Emma's expression softened when she saw Sophie crying. She said she was sorry, Sophie was upset, and that none of this was her fault. But she also said that sometimes adults make choices that affect everyone around them in ways that cannot be undone. Dad got angry then. He said Emma was being selfish and cruel. He said she was punishing innocent kids because she could not let go of her anger at him. He said a mature person would put the past behind them for the sake of family. That is when Emma stood up. She said she had tried to be polite, but that she was not going to sit there and be lectured about maturity by someone who abandoned his children. She said she was leaving, and that this whole forced reunion was exactly why she had not wanted Dad in her life. Emma left money on the table for her meal and walked out. Marcus apologized to everyone and followed her. Sophie was still crying and asking what she had done wrong. Dylan looked like he wanted to disappear. I did not know what to do. I felt terrible for Sophie and Dylan, but I also understood Emma's reaction. Dad had pushed for this meeting despite being told it was a bad idea, and now everyone was upset. The rest of dinner was tense. Carol tried to comfort Sophie while Dad sat there looking angry. I tried to make conversation with Dylan about school and baseball, but he just gave short answers. When we were leaving, Sophie asked if Emma hated her. I told her that Emma did not hate her, but that the situation was complicated because of things that happened a long time ago. Sophie said she just wanted to have a normal family and did not understand why that was so hard. Dad pulled me aside again and said he was disappointed in how Emma had handled things. He said he had hoped she would be more mature and welcoming. I pointed out that he had been warned this would happen, but he chose to force it anyway. The next day, Dad and his family flew back to California. Sophie texted me a few times asking if Emma was okay and if there was anything she could do to fix things. I did not know what to tell her. Emma flew back to Portland that afternoon. Before she left, she apologized for how things went, but said she could not pretend to be okay with Dad just to make other people comfortable. She said she felt bad about Sophie's feelings getting hurt, but that Dad was the one who put everyone in that position. Mom said she was not surprised by how things went. She said Dad had always been someone who did what he wanted without considering how it would affect others. She said forcing this meeting was typical of his approach to problems. So, that is where things stand now. My graduation got turned into this family drama that nobody really wanted. Sophie still texts me sometimes, but it is different now. She seems sad and confused about why Emma does not want a relationship with any of them. I do not know what to do going forward. Part of me thinks Emma was too harsh with Sophie and Dylan since they are just kids caught in the middle. But another part of me understands that Emma has every right to protect herself from Dad's manipulation. Update 2. I need to update everyone because things have gotten much more complicated since my last post. About a month after graduation, I started getting more frequent texts from Sophie, 16 female. At first, they were just normal sister-type messages about school and friends, but then she started asking more questions about why Emma, 29 female, was so angry with Dad. I tried to explain the basics without going into too much detail since she is only 16. I told her that Dad had left when Emma and I were young and that Emma felt hurt by that. Sophie said that Dad had told her we lived far away, and that is why they never visited. This seemed like a pretty big difference in story. So, I asked Sophie what exactly Dad had told her about us over the years. She said he mentioned us sometimes, but always made it sound like we were the ones who did not want contact. She said Dad told her that our mom had turned us against him after the divorce. I started asking more questions and realized that Sophie and Dylan, 14 male, had a completely different version of events than what actually happened. They thought Dad had been trying to maintain a relationship with us this whole time, but that we had rejected him. Sophie said Dad told them that he sent birthday and Christmas gifts every year, but that we returned them. She said he claimed to have called and written letters that went unanswered. According to her, Dad portrayed himself as the heartbroken father whose ex-wife had poisoned his children against him. This made me angry because none of that was true. Dad had barely maintained contact after leaving, and certainly never sent gifts or wrote letters. The few times he called, it was brief and awkward conversations where he seemed distracted. I decided to tell Sophie the real timeline of events. I explained that Dad had an affair with her mom, Carol, 45, while still married to our mom. I told her that he left when I was 7 and moved across the country immediately. I explained about the minimal child support and the missed birthdays and holidays. Sophie was quiet for a long time after I told her all this. Then she said that could not be right because Dad was such a good father to her and Dylan. She said he coached Dylan's team and helped with homework and never missed school events. I said that was exactly the point. He was a good father to them, but he had not been to Emma and me. I said that is why Emma was so hurt, because she could see what kind of father he was capable of being but had chosen not to be for us. Sophie seemed really shaken by this conversation. She said she needed to think about everything I had told her. For about 2 weeks, I did not hear from her at all. Then she started asking more specific questions. She wanted to know exact dates and details about when Dad left and when the divorce happened. She asked about the child support payments and whether we had really returned gifts. I answered everything honestly. I even asked Mom to confirm some of the timeline details so I could be accurate. Mom was hesitant to get involved, but she understood that Sophie deserved to know the truth. During this time, I noticed that Dad had stopped texting me completely. After graduation, he had sent a few messages saying he hoped Emma would come around eventually, but then nothing. I figured he was probably upset about how the reunion had gone. 3 weeks ago, Sophie called me crying. She said she had confronted Dad about the things I told her. She asked him directly if he had been having an affair when he left his first family, and if he had really tried to maintain contact with us over the years. According to Sophie, Dad got defensive and angry. He said I was filling her head with lies and trying to turn her against him. He said his first marriage was complicated and that she was too young to understand adult relationships. Sophie said she pressed him for straight answers about the timeline and the child support. Dad apparently said that our mom had made it difficult for him to be involved and that he had tried his best under the circumstances. But Sophie is smart, and she had been thinking about everything I told her. She asked Dad why he never mentioned us to her and Dylan when they were younger if he really wanted a relationship with us. She asked why he had never tried to visit or invite us to visit them. Dad could not give good answers to these questions. Sophie said he just kept saying that the situation was complicated and that she needed to trust him, but she said his explanations did not make sense when she compared them to what I had told her. The conversation ended with Dad telling Sophie that she needed to stop talking to me if I was going to poison her mind against him. He said family loyalty meant supporting each other, not listening to outside influences trying to cause problems. Sophie was upset because she felt like Dad was asking her to choose between him and me. I told her she should not have to choose and that any parent who makes a kid choose between relationships is being manipulative. I said she could talk to whoever she wanted and that I would understand if she needed to limit contact to keep peace at home. But Sophie said she was tired of the lies and have truths. She said she wanted to know what kind of person her father really was. She asked if she could talk to Emma directly to get her side of the story. I was hesitant because I knew Emma was not interested in getting involved with Dad's other family. But Sophie kept asking and saying she needed to understand the full picture. Finally, I gave her Emma's phone number, but warned her that Emma might not want to talk. To my surprise, Emma agreed to have one phone conversation with Sophie. Emma told me later that she could tell Sophie was genuinely trying to understand the truth and was not just trying to defend Dad. The conversation between Emma and Sophie lasted almost 2 hours. Emma told her everything about having to help raise me when Dad left, about Mom working 3 jobs, about the years of minimal contact and broken promises. Emma also told her about the graduation disaster and why she could not pretend everything was fine. Sophie was quiet for most of it, just asking occasional questions for clarification. At the end, she thanked Emma for being honest with her. Emma said Sophie seemed like a good kid who was caught in a bad situation. After talking to Emma, Sophie went back to Dad with more specific questions. She asked him about Mom working 3 jobs and Emma having to act like a parent. She asked about specific birthdays and holidays he had missed. She asked why he had told her and Dylan that he did not want contact when he had never really tried to have contact. This time, Dad lost his temper completely. Sophie said he yelled at her for going behind his back and talking to Emma. He said Emma was a bitter person who was trying to destroy his current family out of spite. He said Sophie was being disloyal and ungrateful after everything he had done for her. Sophie said she had never seen Dad so angry before. She said it scared her because he was usually patient and calm, but when she challenged him about his past, he became someone she did not recognize. The fight ended with Dad taking away Sophie's phone and forbidding her from contacting Emma or me. He told Carol, 45, that his older kids were trying to manipulate Sophie and that they needed to protect her from our influence. But Sophie borrowed a friend's phone to text me about what happened. She said Dad's reaction had convinced her that everything Emma and I told her was true. She said a person who was telling the truth would not be so afraid of questions or so angry about their kids talking to each other. Sophie said she felt betrayed by Dad, not just because of what he did to Emma and me, but because he had lied to her for her whole life. She said she could not trust him anymore and did not know how to act normal at home. She also said she felt guilty for being the kid Dad chose to stay with and be a good parent too. She said it was not fair that she got the good version of Dad while Emma and I got abandoned. She said she understood now why Emma was so angry and why she could not just forgive and move on. Yesterday, Sophie texted me from school to say that things at home were getting worse. She said Dad and Carol were fighting more because Carol was starting to ask questions too. Apparently, Carol had always wondered about the details of Dad's first marriage and divorce, and Sophie's questions had made her curious. Sophie said Carol had asked Dad directly if he had been having an affair before his first marriage ended. Dad denied it, but Carol did not seem satisfied with his answer. Sophie said she could hear them arguing at night after she and Dylan went to bed. Sophie also said that Dad had become stricter and more controlling with her and Dylan. He was checking their phones constantly and asking lots of questions about who they talked to at school. Dylan was confused about why Dad was suddenly so paranoid and suspicious. I do not know what to do about any of this. Sophie says she wants to keep talking to Emma and me, but that she is afraid of making things worse at home. She said Dad has threatened to send her to boarding school if she keeps being rebellious and disrespectful. Part of me thinks I should have just left things alone and not told Sophie the truth about Dad's past, but another part of me thinks she had a right to know, especially since Dad had been lying to her about us for years. Emma says this is exactly why she did not want to get involved with Dad's other family in the first place. She says Dad's behavior is proving that he has not changed at all, and that he is still manipulative and controlling when things do not go his way. I feel responsible for causing problems in Sophie and Dylan's home, but I also think they deserve to know the truth about who their father really is. Update 3. This will be my final update because the situation has basically run its course and there is not much more to say. Things escalated quickly after my last post. Sophie, 16 female, had been using her friend's phone to stay in contact with me, but Dad figured it out somehow. Maybe he saw something on her friend's phone, or maybe one of the teachers at school mentioned seeing them together a lot. Either way, Dad showed up at the school and had a confrontation with Sophie in the parking lot. According to what Sophie told me later, he accused her of going behind his back and deliberately trying to hurt the family. He said she was being manipulated by Emma, 29 female, and me, and that she was too young to understand the real situation. Sophie said she told Dad that she was not being manipulated. She was just trying to understand why he had lied to her for her whole life. She said she asked him again to explain why his stories about us did not match the timeline of what actually happened. Dad apparently said that some things were too complicated for teenagers to understand and that she needed to trust him as her father. Sophie said she told him that trust had to be earned and that lying to her for 16 years was not a good way to earn it. The argument got heated enough that other parents in the parking lot started staring. A teacher came out to see what was happening. Dad left, but he was angry. That night, there was a huge fight at their house. Sophie said Dad was yelling at Carol, 45, for not supporting him and not keeping Sophie in line. Carol apparently said she was starting to have her own questions about Dad's version of events and wanted to know the truth about his first marriage. Dad lost his temper and said some things about our mom that were cruel and untrue. Carol got upset because she realized that if Dad could talk about his ex-wife that way, he might talk about her the same way someday. The fighting went on for hours. Dylan, 14 male, came to Sophie's room and asked what was happening. Sophie tried to explain, but it was hard to make a 14-year-old understand all the complicated history. 2 days later, Carol called me directly. She said she had gotten my number from Sophie's phone and wanted to hear my side of the story. She said she was starting to realize that Dad's explanations about his past did not add up, and she needed to know what kind of man she was married to. I was honest with Carol about everything. I told her the timeline of the affair, the divorce, Dad leaving, and the years of minimal contact. I told her about Mom working 3 jobs and Emma having to help raise me. I told her about the child support that barely came and the birthday calls that did not happen. Carol was quiet while I talked. When I finished, she said she had suspected some of this over the years, but that Dad always had explanations that seemed reasonable. She said she was starting to see a pattern of him telling different versions of events to different people. Carol said she had noticed that Dad got defensive and angry whenever anyone asked too many questions about his past. She said he had always portrayed himself as the victim of a bitter ex-wife and ungrateful children, but that never quite made sense to her. She also said that Dad's reaction to Sophie's questions had been extreme and controlling in a way that worried her. She said she did not like seeing him try to isolate Sophie from family members or threaten her for asking legitimate questions. Carol asked me what I thought she should do. I said I could not give her advice about her marriage, but that Sophie and Dylan deserved to know the truth about their father's character. I said they also deserved to have relationships with their siblings if they wanted them without being punished for it. Last week, Carol made her decision. She told Dad that she was taking Sophie and Dylan to visit her parents for a while so she could think about their marriage. She said Dad's behavior over the past few months had shown her a side of him that she did not like. Dad tried to convince her to stay. He said Sophie was just going through a rebellious phase and that outside influences were causing problems in their family. He said if Carol took his side and supported him, everything would go back to normal. But Carol said the problem was not Sophie's questions or outside influences. The problem was that Dad had been lying to all of them about important things and then trying to control them when they found out the truth. Carol and the kids are staying with her parents now. Sophie has been texting me regularly and seems relieved to be away from the tension at home. She said she loves Dad but cannot trust him anymore after finding out how he had manipulated the truth about his past. Dylan is having a harder time understanding everything. He is younger and Dad has always been a good father to him. Sophie is trying to explain things in a way that he can understand, but it is confusing for a 14-year-old. Dad has been calling and texting all of us, me, Emma, Sophie, and Carol. His messages alternate between angry accusations and attempts at reconciliation. He blames Emma and me for destroying his current family and says we will not be satisfied until everyone is as bitter as we are. Emma has blocked his number and told me I should do the same. She says Dad is showing his true colors now that he cannot control the narrative anymore. She says this is exactly the kind of manipulative behavior she remembered from when we were kids. I have not blocked Dad's number yet, but I do not respond to his messages. There is nothing left to say. He had the opportunity to be honest with Sophie and Dylan about his past, and chose instead to lie, and then try to control them when they found out. Carol is talking to a lawyer about divorce options. She said she cannot stay married to someone who lies so easily and tries to manipulate their children. She said if Dad had been honest from the beginning, they could have worked through his past mistakes together. Sophie asks me sometimes if I think Dad can change or if their family can ever be normal again. I tell her that people can change, but only if they want to, and only if they take responsibility for their actions. Dad does not seem willing to do either of those things. Emma talked to Sophie on the phone last week. She apologized for being cold at graduation and explained that she was protecting herself from getting hurt again. Sophie said she understood now why Emma had reacted that way. Emma told Sophie that she was welcome to stay in touch, and that what happened between Emma and Dad did not have to affect their relationship as siblings. Sophie seemed happy about this, and said she hoped they could meet again someday under better circumstances. I do not know what will happen with Dad's marriage or whether he will ever have a relationship with any of his children again. What I do know is that forcing that family reunion at graduation set off a chain of events that revealed who Dad really is. Sophie and Dylan deserve to know the truth about their father, even if it was painful. They also deserve the chance to have relationships with Emma and me without being lied to or manipulated. Dad created this mess by lying for years and then trying to control everyone when the truth came out. Now he is facing the consequences of his choices, just like Emma and I had to face the consequences of his choices when we were kids. The difference is that Sophie and Dylan have people supporting them and telling them the truth. Emma and I had to figure things out on our own when we were much younger. I hope Sophie and Dylan will be okay. They are good kids who got caught up in their father's lies and manipulation. They did not ask for any of this, but now they have to deal with the reality of who their father is. As for me, I am done trying to have a relationship with Dad. I gave him chances over the years, and he wasted all of them. Now I have seen how he treats people who ask questions or do not go along with his version of events, and I do not want that kind of person in my life. Emma was right to cut contact with him years ago. It just took me longer to see what she saw when she was 16. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love and protect you are the ones you need protection from. Now, let us move to the next story. Story 2. I raised my brother since childhood, but when I needed help, he chose his girlfriend over me. A year later, he wants to reconnect, but I am not sure I can forgive him. I, 28 male, never thought I would be sharing this story, but recent events have left me questioning everything I thought I knew about family and loyalty. It is the story of my younger brother, Alexis, 24 male, and me, and how our relationship crumbled after years of sacrifice and struggle. Our story begins in a small, run-down house on the outskirts of Cleveland. I was 8, and Alexis was 4 when our dad walked out on us. I remember that day clearly. It was raining, and Dad had just lost his job at the steel mill. He and Mom had been fighting more than usual, their voices echoing through our thin walls. That evening, he packed a bag, kissed Alexis and me on the forehead, and walked out the door. We never saw him again. Mom tried her best to keep it together after Dad left, but it was clear she was struggling. She had always been prone to bouts of sadness, but after Dad's departure, it was like a switch had been flipped. Some days she could not even get out of bed. I started taking on more responsibilities around the house, making sure Alexis was fed, helping him with his homework, getting him ready for school. As the years went by, things got tougher. Mom's depression worsened, and she started drinking to cope. I would often come home from school to find her passed out on the couch, empty bottles scattered around her. I would clean up, make dinner for Alexis and me, and try to keep things as normal as possible. By the time I was 12, I was basically running the household. I started mowing lawns and doing odd jobs around the neighborhood to bring in extra money. We needed it. Mom could barely keep a job, and when she did work, most of her paycheck went to alcohol. Alexis was not an easy kid to deal with during this time. He was angry and confused, acting out at school and at home. I lost count of how many times I had to leave my after-school job to pick him up from the principal's office. But I never gave up on him. I remember one night when Alexis was about 10, he broke down crying, asking why Dad left and why Mom was always sick. I held him and promised that I would always be there for him no matter what. When I turned 16, I got my first real job at a local grocery store. I worked every hour I could, juggling school and taking care of Alexis. It was exhausting, but I was determined to give him a better life than I had. I would skip lunch at school to save money, often going hungry so Alexis could have a proper meal. There was one particularly rough period when I was 17. Mom lost her job again and went on a weeks-long bender. We were behind on rent and utilities, and I was worried we would be evicted. I remember staying up late, poring over bills, trying to figure out how to stretch my meager paycheck to cover everything. Alexis found me crying at the kitchen table one night, overwhelmed by it all. Instead of panicking, he sat with me and helped me sort through the bills. It was the first time I felt like we were truly in this together. When I turned 18, I made the tough decision to move out and take Alexis with me. Mom was in no state to care for him, and I was worried about his safety. It was not easy, but I managed to rent a small apartment and became Alexis' legal guardian. I worked 2 jobs while finishing high school online. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, but seeing Alexis start to thrive made it all worth it. Over the next few years, things slowly improved. I worked my way up at the grocery store, eventually becoming a manager. Alexis settled into his new school and even joined the basketball team. I would work extra shifts to pay for his uniforms and equipment, determined to give him as normal a life as possible. When Alexis graduated high school, I was so proud. I thought my heart would burst. He was the first in our family to get a diploma, and I felt like all our struggles had been worth it. Alexis decided to go to community college, and I supported him fully, picking up even more hours at work to help pay for his books and tuition. Meanwhile, I started taking night classes in information technology. It was tough balancing work, Alexis' needs, and my own education, but I was determined to build a better future for us. There were nights when I would be up until 3 in the morning studying only to have to be at work by 7 in the morning. But I pushed through. Fast forward to last year. After years of hard work and certifications, I finally landed a job in information technology at a local tech startup. It was a dream come true. Better pay, better hours, and a chance to use the skills I had worked so hard to acquire. Alexis had just finished community college and was working at a local restaurant. Things were looking up for both of us. Then, out of the blue, the startup went under. They had lost their main investor, and suddenly I was out of a job. I was not too worried at first. I had some savings and thought I would find another job quickly. But weeks turned into months, and my savings started to dwindle. I was doing everything I could, applying to jobs, taking on freelance work, even going back to delivering groceries at night. But it was not enough. 3 months ago, I realized I could not make rent. I had never felt so defeated. After years of struggle and sacrifice, I was right back where I started. I swallowed my pride and asked Alexis if I could crash on his couch for a few weeks until I found a new job. To my shock, he said no. He claimed his girlfriend, Rosie, 23 female, was not comfortable with it. I could not believe it. After everything I had done for him, he could not even offer me a couch to sleep on. I ended up having to move in with a coworker, Tom, 32 male, who I barely knew. It was humiliating and uncomfortable, but I had no choice. I found a new job after about a month and got back on my feet, but I have not spoken to Alexis since that day. Now, Alexis has been trying to reach out. He has left voicemails, sent texts, even showed up at my new apartment. He says he is sorry that he made a mistake, that Rosie pressured him into saying no, but I cannot bring myself to forgive him. Every time I think about forgiving him, I remember all the nights I went hungry so he could eat, all the hours I worked to put him through school, all the sacrifices I made, and then I remember how easily he turned his back on me when I needed him most. Am I wrong for this? Should I give him another chance? I just cannot get over the fact that when I needed him most, he chose his girlfriend over me. Part of me wants to forgive him. He is the only family I have left, after all. But another part of me is so angry and hurt that I cannot imagine letting him back into my life. I have spent so long putting Alexis first that I do not even know how to prioritize my own feelings in this situation. I never thought I would be in this position. I always believed that the bond Alexis and I shared was unbreakable, forged through years of hardship and mutual support. Now I am left questioning everything I thought I knew about our relationship. Was it all one-sided? Did Alexis ever truly appreciate everything I did for him? Or was I just a convenience, someone to rely on until he did not need me anymore? I am lost and confused, and I do not know what to do. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. It has been about a month since my original post, and I wanted to provide an update on my situation with Alexis. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to comment and offer advice. Your insights really helped me gain some perspective on the situation. After much consideration, I decided to meet with Alexis. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a small park where we used to play as kids. I arrived early and sat on a bench, my stomach in knots as I waited for Alexis to arrive. When Alexis showed up, he looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes and seemed to have lost weight. For a moment, I felt a pang of worry, the big brother instinct kicking in. But then I reminded myself why we were here. Alexis started by apologizing profusely. He admitted that he had made a huge mistake and that he regretted it every day. He explained that Rosie had indeed pressured him into saying no, threatening to break up with him if he let me stay. Alexis said he was scared of losing her and made the wrong choice. As he spoke, memories flooded back. I remembered the day Alexis got his first girlfriend in high school. He had been so nervous, and I had spent hours helping him plan the perfect first date. I had always tried to be there for him, to guide him through life's challenges. It hurt to think that he had chosen a girlfriend of a few months over our lifelong bond. Alexis went on to explain that Rosie had broken up with him a week after he refused to let me stay. Apparently, she had been cheating on him, and used the situation as an excuse to end things. Alexis said he realized then how badly he had messed up, but by that point, I was already not speaking to him. As I listened to Alexis, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, pity, and a lingering sense of brotherly love. But I also felt something else. Exhaustion. I was tired of always being the strong one, of always having to forgive and understand. I told Alexis that while I appreciated his apology, it did not change the fact that when I needed him most, he chose someone else over me. I reminded him of all the times I had put him first, even at great personal cost. I told him about the nights I went hungry so he could eat, the job opportunities I turned down to stay close to home and take care of him. Alexis broke down crying, saying he knew he could never make it up to me. He told me how much he missed our relationship, how lost he felt without me in his life. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay like I used to when we were kids, but I held back. Instead, I told Alexis that I needed more time and space to process everything. I said I was not ready to forgive him yet, but I would not completely close the door on our relationship. It was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do, watching him walk away with slumped shoulders and tears in his eyes. In the weeks since that meeting, I have been doing a lot of self-reflection. I have started reconnecting with old friends I had neglected while taking care of Alexis. I even went on a date last week, something I had not done in years. It felt strange, but also liberating to focus on myself for once. Alexis has respected my wishes and given me space. He sends a text once a week, just checking in, but does not push for more. Part of me misses our relationship, the easy camaraderie we once had. But another part is enjoying this newfound freedom, the ability to make decisions without considering Alexis' needs first. I have also been thinking a lot about our mom. I have not spoken to her in years, not since I moved out with Alexis. Part of me wonders if I should reach out, try to mend that relationship too. But then I remember all the pain and struggle, and I am not sure I am ready for that. As for the future, I am still uncertain. I do not know if Alexis and I will ever get back to where we were. Maybe we should not. Maybe this is an opportunity for both of us to grow, to establish a healthier relationship built on mutual respect rather than dependency. For now, I am taking it one day at a time. I am focusing on my new job, on building a life for myself that does not revolve around taking care of others. It is scary and exciting all at once. I am still hurt by what Alexis did, but I am trying to use this experience as a catalyst for positive change in my life. I do not know what the future holds for Alexis and me, but for the first time in my life, I am putting myself first, and it feels both terrifying and liberating. Update 2. It has been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in my situation with Alexis. Over the past few months, Alexis and I have slowly been rebuilding our relationship. We started with occasional text messages, then progressed to phone calls every couple of weeks. Last month, we finally met in person again for dinner at our favorite pizza place from when we were kids. Sitting across from Alexis at that familiar red checkered table, I was struck by how much had changed. We used to come here after his basketball games, me still in my work uniform, scraping together enough change to split a small pizza. Now we were both adults ordering our own meals. an awkward silence stretching between us. Alexis broke the ice by sharing some news with me. He has been seeing a counselor to work through his issues, particularly his tendency to let others influence his decisions. He admitted that he had always relied on me to make the tough choices, and when I needed him, he did not know how to step up. As he spoke, I remembered all the times I had to be the adult in our relationship, like the time when Alexis was 16 and got caught shoplifting. I had to leave work early to pick him up from the police station, then spend hours negotiating with the store owner to not press charges. I was exhausted and angry, but I never let Alexis see that. I just focused on getting him through it. Alexis also told me that he has been volunteering at a local youth center, mentoring kids from troubled backgrounds. He said it has helped him understand and appreciate everything I did for him growing up. It was a bittersweet moment for me. I was proud of his growth, but it also brought up a lot of painful memories. We talked about our childhood and our mom. Alexis confessed that he had always felt guilty for not doing more to help when we were younger. I explained that it was not his responsibility. He was just a kid and I had chosen to take on that burden. It felt strange to finally have this conversation, to acknowledge the abnormality of our upbringing. As for me, I have been doing well. My new job is going great, and I have even been promoted. I am seeing someone new, Emily, 26 female, and things are getting serious. It is the first time in my life I have been able to focus on my own happiness without worrying about anyone else. Alexis seemed genuinely happy for me, but I could see a flicker of something, perhaps regret or sadness, in his eyes when I talked about Emily. I wondered if he was thinking about Rosie or if he was realizing just how much of my life he had missed out on. Before we left the restaurant, Alexis hesitantly asked if we could make this a regular thing, meeting for dinner once a month. I agreed, but with the caveat that we take things slow. We are not back to where we were before, and honestly, I do not think we ever will be. But we are building a new kind of relationship, one where we are equals, not caretaker and dependent. As I drove home that night, I felt a mix of emotions. There was still a lingering anger when I thought about what had happened, but it was tempered by a growing understanding. I am learning to forgive, not for Alexis's sake, but for my own peace of mind. This journey has taught me a lot about the complexities of family relationships, about the fine line between love and obligation. I am still navigating this new dynamic with Alexis, still learning how to be a brother without being a parent. It is not easy, but I am hopeful that we are on the right path. Update 3. It has been a year since my original post, and I wanted to give a final update on my situation with Alexis. Our relationship has continued to improve slowly but steadily. We have kept up our monthly dinner dates, gradually becoming more comfortable with each other again. It is not the close bond we once had, but it is a comfortable adult relationship that works for both of us. Alexis has made significant strides in his personal growth. He is still volunteering at the youth center and has even started taking classes at the local university. He is studying social work, inspired by his experiences mentoring troubled youth. It is strange to see him so focused and driven, but I am genuinely proud of him. Last week, Alexis invited me to watch him give a speech at a fundraiser for the youth center. As I sat in the audience listening to him talk passionately about the importance of mentorship and support for at-risk youth, I felt a surge of mixed emotions. Pride, certainly, but also a twinge of sadness for the childhood we never had. As for me, I am doing better than ever. Emily and I got engaged last month, and we are planning a small wedding for next spring. When I told Alexis about the engagement, he surprised me by asking if he could be my best man. Despite everything we have been through, it felt right to say yes. I have also started my own information technology consulting business. It has been challenging but rewarding. In a way, the whole situation with Alexis gave me the push I needed to take risks and prioritize my own goals. Looking back, I realized that cutting ties with Alexis, even temporarily, was necessary for both of us. It allowed me to break free from the caretaker role I had been stuck in for so long, and it forced Alexis to stand on his own 2 feet. Our relationship now is different, but in many ways, it is healthier. We are no longer bound by obligation or guilt, but by a genuine desire to be part of each other's lives. We have both learned valuable lessons about boundaries, forgiveness, and the importance of self-care. There are still moments when the past creeps up on us, like when Alexis asked about inviting our mom to the wedding, opening up a whole new set of complicated emotions. But we are learning to navigate these challenges together as equals. To anyone going through a similar situation, I want to say this. It is okay to prioritize yourself. It is okay to step back from toxic relationships, even if they are with family. And it is okay if reconciliation takes time. Healing is not linear, and there is no set timeline for forgiveness. Last week, Alexis and I visited our old neighborhood. We stood outside our childhood home, now occupied by strangers. As we reminisced about the good times and the bad, I realized how far we have both come. We are not the same scared kids we once were, struggling to survive. We are adults who have faced our past, learned from it, and are working to build a better future. I'm not saying everything is perfect. There are still moments when I feel a flash of resentment, or when Alexis gets defensive about the past. But we are learning to communicate better, to express our feelings without falling into old patterns. One thing that has helped is setting clear boundaries. I have made it clear to Alexis that while I value our relationship, I am not responsible for his happiness or success. He has learned to respect my time and my decisions, understanding that my life does not revolve around him anymore. As for our mom, we have decided to reach out to her together. It is a daunting prospect, but facing it as a team feels right. We are not sure what will come of it, but we are prepared to support each other through whatever happens. Looking ahead, I am cautiously optimistic about the future of my relationship with Alexis. We are planning a camping trip next month, something we used to dream about doing when we were kids, but never had the chance. It feels like a new beginning, a chance to create positive memories together as adults. Thank you to everyone who has followed my story and offered support along the way. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable in this journey. It has been a long, difficult road, but I feel like I finally found a balance between being a brother and being my own person.